Hi, everyone. Welcome. So today is the first day of our last week of quarter one. And so today we're going to start working on our final project or our final mini project. And we'll do part one today. So today we're going to focus on reviewing homeostasis and negative feedback loops. And then the rest of the time will just be yours to work on the CER. So this was my do now, which was fun to hear from different students. So announcements, again, it is the last week of quarter one. So let's finish out this quarter strong, and please do be checking in with your other teachers about your grades, about working class, about what you should be doing. I had a student send me this meme warning me not to give too heavy of a load this final week of the quarter. So hopefully this mini project will not be too big of a lift for all of you. Okay, so again, this mini project is in two parts, and we're going to be doing the first part today. So the first part is to be able to explain how your body recovers from stress using hormones with CER. All right, so we're going to jump straight into that today. And in order to do that, we're going to review a couple of concepts that we touched on, I think, in week 6. But a few weeks ago. So I want to review them with y'all. And so the two concepts are negative feedback loop and homeostasis. So this is a YouTube video that very concisely reviews it. 1 second. Well, let me share and I will stream it here for y'all so you don't have to open up another YouTube video. But let me share my computer sound, and then we can go ahead and start.
Did you know just sitting here right now, you're doing something absolutely remarkable? Well, your cells, tissues, organ systems, yes, we just leveled up those biological levels of organization, they're all working towards something called homeostasis. It's a state of balance. Yes, homeostasis means many things in your body. For example, that your blood stays within a certain pH level range. It means that your blood glucose remains within a certain range. It means your internal body temperature stays within a certain range. See, we've mentioned the major body systems before and that they work together. And today we're going to talk about how they work together using something called positive and negative feedback, and also how this relates to homeostasis. So many years ago, I had a pet bearded dragon. Her name was Debbie, and she was the best lizard ever. Debbie used to sit on our couch with me when I'd watch TV, and she loved to have her chin scratched. I even got her a bearded dragon leash so I could take her outside. Yeah, they make those. Anyway, Debbie loved her heat lamp. She would sit under the heat lamp on her rock, and when she got too hot, she would get off her rock and out of the heat lamp range and go somewhere else. She had a huge enclosure too because I wanted Debbie to be a happy lizard so she could find an ideal temperature. Well, why all this talk about Debbie? Well, Debbie is an example of an animal that some people refer to as cold-blooded, or a fancier term, ectotherm. We actually like the fancier term a bit better though because her blood isn't necessarily cold. Her body temperature can fluctuate with the environment. But not you. You are warm-blooded, or the fancier term, an endotherm. Your body works hard to keep the internal temperature it keeps. It's also a beautiful example of something called negative feedback. Before we define it, let us show you this example. Say you're in an environment that is very hot, like being outside in the Texas summer heat. That's typically hot. Thanks to nerves which can act as sensors, the brain notices this. It will send signals to counteract this variable. Sweat glands do what they do best, sweat. Heat is lost as that sweat evaporates off your skin. You may have some redness too. That's because your blood vessels are getting wider, dilating, in order to help get rid of that heat. And the result, whether you realize it or not, helps you lower your body temperature. But wait, what if you go inside now and the AC is blasting? You'll stop sweating. You may even shiver. The muscle contractions of shivering can generate heat. And those blood vessels will now decrease in diameter size, constrict, to help you conserve the heat because that makes it harder for the heat to escape. Your body temperature can increase then. This is negative feedback. So, a simplified definition, negative feedback is when some variable triggers a counteracting response in order to come back to some set point. If we consider that this whole thing is actually a negative feedback loop, we can see that the negative feedback brings the body back to the set point, which in this case is a stable temperature, keeping homeostasis. Negative feedback is also going on in the regulation of your glucose, your blood sugar. Okay, we're really simplifying this here, as we often do. But when glucose, blood sugar, is too high, one hormone that is released is insulin. I always imagine insulin as this hormone that makes the cells say, feed me, because it has the ability to make cells take in glucose. On the flip side, if glucose is too low in the blood, a hormone called glucagon can be released. This hormone can have many effects, and one of them is that it can cause the liver to release glucose into the blood. There's more to the regulation of blood sugar than this, but you can see how this is negative feedback. You have counteracting responses here in order to keep homeostasis. So, what about positive?
Okay, so that was a negative feedback loop and homeostasis. Hopefully that was review for all of y'all. So I want to give you an example of something we've walked through before in terms of hormones. So we know that homeostasis is when your body or whatever it is in a stable place. It's neutral, right? And so we're going to do another example of the negative feedback loop that you've seen before weeks prior. So the scenario in this case is that you are in homeostasis when you're at a family barbecue. You feel comfortable, you're in your element, you're hanging out with your cousins, you're in homeostasis, right? And so the stressor that you may experience at this barbecue is that your parent or guardian forces you to talk to a family member that you've never met before. And so immediately you're like, oh crap, you're out of homeostasis, right? And your brain immediately, your hypothalamus tells the adrenal glands to secrete adrenaline and cortisol. So your adrenaline and cortisol levels start increasing, and those are hormones, right? And so, because your adrenaline and cortisol are increasing, you're going into fight or flight mode. And so what your body does is it shows up, those symptoms of stress start showing up. And so your heart rate increases, your chest maybe feels tight, your palms start getting a little bit sweaty. And so to come back into a state of homeostasis, you then, maybe you go talk to that person, or maybe you say, okay, I need to go for a walk to calm down. And so you go for a walk to clear your head and calm your nervous system. And so then as you go for a walk, your adrenaline and cortisol decreases. And then your endorphins increase because you're going for a walk, you're expending energy, and your endorphins increase. So you feel less symptoms, right? And so now you're going back into a state of homeostasis. Now that you've calmed yourself, you've reduced your adrenaline cortisol levels. All right, so now you're back into a place of homeostasis after that walk, which is also a form of self-care, right? All right, so just a review, your brain's reaction is like where your hormones kicking into gear, and then it's these symptoms of stress that show up in your body. And then the action taken is some sort of self-care or self-soothing activity that returns you back to homeostasis. So this whole cycle is called a negative feedback loop. It's how your body is naturally always trying to get you back into homeostasis. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to show you your final project now that we've reviewed your negative feedback loops and homeostasis. So this is your project, and let me zoom in a little bit so you can get a better look. So again, I've already explained that it's a two-part project. The first one is what we're going to be working on in this document here. If you scroll down, you'll see that there's a CER. By tomorrow, I mean Thursday, Friday, we'll be working on our stress email. And so this is just an email you're going to send to a quarter two teacher where you're going to talk about challenges that you face during distance learning. All right, so we do this because we've been talking a lot about care in this class. And so this project is meant to validate the parts of your life that are stressful and acknowledge the ways that our body deals with that stress and recovers from that stress. And then that emailing part is to a form of self-care where you're advocating for yourself. And that's a type of taking care of yourself, right? So to remind you, we put the self-soothing and self-care cartoons up here. And then of course the learning targets. So you're gonna be graded on LT1 and LT2 again for this final project. All right, so this rubric is for you to review. So in your CER, you've already actually done a lot of your CER. So for your homework this past weekend, you would have written your claim and your evidence. So remember when you listed out 3 forms of self-care and self-soothing activities, and you wrote that as your claim. So my body recovered from stress by blank, blank, blank. And then your evidence, you should have already written your evidence as well. So you can click on one of these periods, depending on what period you're in. Mr. Trin has his listed out here as well. So you can click on here to go to get to your notebook. It'll take you straight to your notebook. And then you can copy and paste. So I have a student's notebook open here, and you can go to slide 8 and then go ahead and copy and paste all of your answers into your notebook here. All right. And then today we're going to be working on our reasoning, which I'll walk us through in a second. Okay, so make sure you do that copy and pasting so you don't give yourself extra work. All right. So I'm going to walk through an example of reasoning for us together. So to revisit, remember the example I gave for last class, my claim is to list 3 self-soothing activities. So for me, I said, my body recovers from stress by exercising, journaling, and talking to my friends. So exercising and journaling are 2 forms of self-care that I do, and then talking to my friends is a form of self-soothing that I do. And so today we're going to focus, my reasoning that I want to give as an example, I'm going to focus on the exercising one. So for evidence and how evidence helps me, so the evidence of how exercise helped me recover from stress. My evidence is when I feel jittery and unable to focus, I exercise and then I feel calmer and less jittery. So that is my evidence. So I answer the question of what do you feel before self-care and self-soothing, and then what do you feel afterwards? All right. So I'm going to walk you through for reasoning what I'm looking for. For reasoning, the 4 really important things that you must include, and remember, reasoning is going to be the scientific explanation for how your evidence supports your claim. So this is where you're going to be talking about all about the negative feedback loops of homeostasis and the hormones. All right. So first and foremost, of course, y'all know this, your reasoning should include a hormone. So which hormone is causing these symptoms of stress? And then if it is increasing or decreasing, when and why, okay? The second one is that you should name the organ in which the hormone is produced. You should include the vocabulary word homeostasis and also negative feedback loop. So for my reasoning, I'm going to start with naming the hormone and whether it's increasing or decreasing when I exercise. All right. I have chosen to look at the hormone endorphins because during my research, I found that exercise is very closely tied with endorphins. And so endorphins reduce pain and enhance pleasure. And it increases when people exercise here. So that's why I chose it. So I see here that it increases when people exercise, and it also relieves depression, stress, and anxiety. And so that is why I chose endorphins. So my first sentence of my reasoning, I'm going to write exercising. So I'm referring back to this. Exercising is how my body recovers from stress because endorphins increase in my body due to exercise. So I'm very clearly stating that the endorphins are increasing from exercise. So then I want to name the organ. So I see here that the organ is the pituitary gland that produces the endorphins. So I'm going to say endorphins are released from the pituitary gland. Perfect. So I've hit these two. And now I just want to make sure that I am naming homeostasis and negative feedback loop and explaining how those two things are happening in the scenario. So I will write increased endorphins relieves stress, which reduces the jittery feeling and puts me back into homeostasis. So what I'm saying is the symptoms of stress I'm facing is the jittery and unfocused feeling. And then these endorphins from exercise help put me back into homeostasis. And that is the whole negative feedback loop. Okay, so that was a step-by-step as to how to hit all 4 of these requirements in the reasoning. So notice how I wrote 3 sentences in my reasoning in order to fully explain how my evidence connects back to my claim. All right. So the rest of the time I gave in class, I just gave y'all the rest of the time to do your work and finish the CR, and you get help with me whenever you need. So that is it. The CR, oops, it's not Sunday. This CR is due on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on which class you are in. And y'all should know which class you're in. So by midnight, I did not adjust these slides. But so this part 1 of this project is due Wednesday, Thursday, just as your science notebooks are, all right, by midnight. So the day before your next class, all right? And so that is all I have for you. Make sure to hit submit on this CER. To find all of the resources for your scientific reasoning, you have all of the resources down here. And then another explanation about negative feedback loops and homeostasis. All right, so carefully read through here in order to fill out your reasoning. And that is all I got for you.